Hello and welcome to this video about climate change. As you're probably well aware, we are living in an incredibly important moment in human history. Just last year, nearly every country in the world agreed to the Paris Agreement, pledging to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius in order to stave off the worst climate impacts. Now, a new report warns that in order to achieve this goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, a goal that the report says is essential for a better future with fewer climate disasters, extinctions, and human suffering, greenhouse gas levels must start dropping by 2025. In the report by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change called Climate Change 2022, Mitigation of Climate Change, it's made very clear that without immediate and radical changes to the way we produce energy, get food, build things, and move around, it will be impossible to keep the warmer temperature goals in reach. And this is not fiction or exaggeration. As United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on Monday, this is what science tells us will result from our current energy policies. At the same time, it's also made very clear that the blame for rising emissions does not fall on everyone equally. According to the report, the 10% of households with the highest per capita emissions contribute a disproportionately large share of global greenhouse gas emissions. So what are our options? According to the report, the only way to prevent widespread climate damage is to immediately stop this trend of rising emissions. To keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal alive, global emissions must peak by 2025 and then reduce emissions by 43% by 2030. By 2050, global net zero emissions must be achieved, meaning the levels of emissions into the atmosphere must be equal to the levels of emissions being pulled out. The single biggest way to cut emissions is to quickly transition away from fossil fuels to renewable and other alternative forms of energy. To limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, according to the report, coal, oil, and gas must be cut in 2050 by roughly 95%, 60%, and 45%, respectively, compared to the levels of 2019. The report's release is especially timely given the armed conflict in Ukraine and the conversations in Europe, the United States, and elsewhere about more quickly transitioning away from Russian fossil fuels. Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, Petteri Talas, said at the Monday news conference that, in the best case, this would speed up the reduction of the use of fossil energy and also speed up the green transition. So what's the takeaway? We are on a fast track to climate disaster, and we have to act now. Reducing global use of coal, oil, and gas, transitioning to renewable energy, and improving the way we produce energy, get food, build things, and move around are essential steps to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees